Hey everyone, welcome to this second recording from our Microsoft Defender Masterclass series. So this is a second recording from Masterclass 1, which took place on 30th of January 2021. And in this recording, Mark will be taking you through the attack scenario 2, which is called the final countdown. So I'll hand over to Mark in a second. I just want to run through a couple of things with you. So to register for future events, head over to our aka.ms link for the registration page, and I'll always keep the backend URL up to date with with the latest events. And I'll give you a few details about that in a second. To access any documentation associated with the labs or any update information on some of our upcoming events, head over to the repo. And of course, if you have a spare couple of minutes after maybe watching one of these recordings or attending the event, then please spend the time giving feedback so we can ensure that we are tailoring these events to meet your needs and requirements, and we can adjust based on any of your feedback, and also ensure if there's stuff that we haven't included, then your feedback allows us to create events to cater for any of that. So thank you for your attendance, thank you for watching these recordings, and thank you for your feedback. So before handing over to Mark, I just want to call out some upcoming events. So for those watching prior to the 17th of March, Masterclass 2 is now open for registration, so head over to the aka.ms link to register for Masterclass 2 on the 17th of March. We're going to be doing more advanced threat hunting, so deeper and wider investigations to help you to improve and practice your skills in this area. So as before, we'll give you access to a demo tenant and run through some scenarios and give you the opportunity to test your skills in those areas. We're also going to be doing further work with Power Platform and looking at Virtual Agent to interrogate Defender for Endpoint tenants for alerts and those types of activities, just showing off some of the automation and AI available for us. And then Masterclass 3 still pending for May 2021, content to be determined, but I'm thinking more multi-tenant to help services partners who want to access many customers, tenants. And then finally, we'll have the Capture the Flag event still scheduled for June 21. So with that, I will hand over to Mark to take you through scenario 2. Thank you.
Welcome to the recording of the Masterclass Series 1. In this video, we're going to go through the attack scenario 2. So in the previous video, we went through scenario 1. Now we're just going to dive into scenario 2 and just give you a little bit of an overview at a high level around the incident and some of the key parts of it. So the first place to start really with this incident is to understand the devices that were involved. So we can see the alerts here from the initial view, and then we can dig down into the devices. So we can see we have three devices involved. And I mean, we could go into each of these devices and start to learn a little bit more about these. We can see this one's a server 2012. And again, these are probably Windows 10 as looking by the names. But again, we could look into all the device information to check. So if we look at first activity, we can see that it looks like this started with a suspicious PowerShell command. And we can see this is on this trn-w2k12-1 machine. So that we can probably presume this is where the incident started. And what we can do is dig into the alerts, and we can look into the timelines of this machine as well, and understand some of the bits and pieces that went on before this alert. So if we dive into the first alert, it should give us an understanding of why this alert has been raised. We can see here from the process tree that we've got PowerShell involved. We can see as a cleanup.ps1 script, and then we can see PowerShell running different types of code. We can see encoded PowerShell here, or it's probably used obfuscation to run some of these commands. What we can do is dive into each of these and start to understand a little bit more about what these commands are doing. And that will help us in the investigation. So we can see the PowerShell's run. I mean, to me, this doesn't mean a lot right now. What I'd need to do is take this away and do some investigation into the commands. But we can see at the end here we're using something like .NET Framework, the csc.exe module, to run then some command line parameters. So this is probably something we then again need to investigate a little bit further. If we wanted to see where something like cleanup.ps1 was used, we could take cleanup.ps1, we could put this in the search bar. This would tell us all the places that we've seen this file. We could use the SHA as well to perform that search. We can see observed in the organization. May have to go back a little bit further. We can just see it's been on this one machine. So it's a PowerShell script that's unique to this machine by the looks of it. We could also run some things like advanced hunting queries to again report on this and try and understand where we've seen this file. So if we go back into the alerts, generally what we do is go through these alerts one by one and start to understand what's happening across this device. But we can see things like known attack frameworks, so things like Metasploit may have been used or involved in this attack. We can use again the alert description and the recommended actions to then take the appropriate actions to protect and remediate this device. We can also see suspicious service registrations. So generally, if we see attack frameworks and we see things like the pipe commands, these are generally used in the meterpreter get system commands, and they're generally used to escalate privileges. So system privileges, trying to obtain those on this box. And again, we can see more associated with those pipe commands. So during this video, we don't have time to go deep into all these alerts, but really this is just to get you started into the scenario and just help you to guide through it and get an understanding of the scenario. Looking through here, I mean, we'd go through each of these suspicious command lines and start to understand what is happening on this box. We can see PowerShell made a suspicious network connection as well. So we could have a look at these URLs that are used here and try to understand what's going on. So we can see here that it looks like PowerShell is reaching out to the internet using a HTTPS download string, and it's invoking Mimikatz. So it's trying to run Mimikatz by downloading this through via PowerShell. Something else that pops out is the wdigest configuration change. What we can see from the events is that it was changed from 0 to 1. So basically, this will allow credentials to be stored in plain text on the device. So maybe that the attacker is trying to harvest these credentials. So by enabling this, they can then try and harvest those credentials using something like Mimikatz to get that. So again, with this, what we could do is run some advanced hunting queries, and these are all in the lab guide. You could run those queries just to understand, has this setting been changed anywhere else across the organization? So let's go back into the alerts. So up to then, we can see that the user involved has really been system. Then we can see that Margot has actually logged onto this device as well. So we've seen things like credential access here, and we've seen Mimikatz being used. So it's probably worth investigating what users have been logging on to this box, because it's possible that these credentials could be compromised. And we can learn more about the user. We can see here Margot is a local admin. So this means that they've got, I suppose, rights to be able to do stuff on that box, and maybe you have those rights across other machines as well. And we can see the devices that Margot's used there as well. So part of the lab guide actually is that we build out a query that we can look to see what users have logged on after this type of change. So if we see this wdigest change, what users have logged on to the box maybe 30 minutes after that. So that should help us, again, give us an idea of if any credentials have been harvested, potentially within the next, say, 30 days. So from there, we can see that Margot's account, we can see it here on the server 2012 box, and then we can start to see it being used on this Windows 10 box as well. And this could be Margot's device, or it could potentially be that these credentials have been misused and used to log in across other devices. So this looks to be a Windows 10 device. So the first thing here, we can see that this is basically remote PowerShell has been used. So this is generally used for the management of devices or servers across the enterprise, and when you want to use things like remote PowerShell to do that. So WinRM, or Windows Remote Management, it may have been abused in this case to actually launch commands, and it looks like register a scheduled task on this box. What we'd probably do is then have a look into this browser help.exe, potentially get it off the box and understand a little bit more about what this executable does. So again, this does look suspicious from this kind of level. We can also see, I suppose, that we've got suspicious scheduled tasks on other boxes as well. So we can see that on this first one, and we can see it again on the second device. We can see here again, it's this browser help being used. So again, we could jump into the timeline, have a look a little bit more around browser help and understand some of the things that it's performing. It might help us understand what the executable is a little bit more. So what we can do is just pivot from here. We can go see in timeline. So we can see some more registry keys, scheduling. So what we probably want to do is walk up this timeline, start to understand if anything else is occurring with this. We can see here as well, browser help has created this funny gagwiper.exe. So this is again another executable that we're going to need to investigate and understand more about. We can see here as well these network connections. So what it may be worth us doing is actually running some advanced hunting queries just to see what browser helper has done on this device and help us understand what it's actually doing. So we can see here again that it's connecting to a remote IP. We may need to look into that IP and create things like indicators. So we could potentially block the IP if we deem it to be malicious. So it's receiving some types of commands. We need to walk through those just to understand what it is downloading. So if we go back into the scenario, so we've seen the suspicious task schedules. We can see things like event log was cleared as well. So it looks like the attacker's trying to cover their tracks as well. So we can see event log was attempted to be cleared using the wev util commands. And we can see attempts as well to stop the sensor. So probably the attacker saw that defender for endpoint was running on this device. So it's again attempted defense evasion by trying to stop the service from running. So that's kind of a high-level walkthrough of the scenario and some of the key, I suppose, events to look a little bit more into. I suppose as a part of a wrap-up of this, we can see that the attacker probably brute forced their way onto this first device, so the server 2012 device. They then use something like Meterpreter or Metasploit as well, potentially to get onto the device and then basically wait for somebody to log into that device. We then see that through the logs, we can see that Margot's logged onto that device and those credentials have been used to run things like remote PowerShell commands across other devices. And then we see things like scheduled task creation, so that browser help.exe is scheduled to run every 5 minutes. And then we see as well browser help it is doing things like downloading of other executables, so potentially the payloads. We can see it communicating with a possible command and control server. And again, if we looked through that timeline or did a little bit more of investigation through advanced hunting, we could get a real clear picture of everything that the browser help is doing on that box. And then towards the end, we see that event logs are tried to be cleared as well, and attempts to stop the defender for endpoint service from running, basically trying to stop that data being reported up. And then there's a few more tasks towards the end. So if you are running through this lab, it's worth checking through some of the last events as well that happen on those devices, just to see what that attacker was trying to do at the end. It could have been potentially trying to wipe those devices and clear all those tracks. And to stop this attack, I suppose there's a few key things. I mean, if the credentials were brute force to get onto the server 2012 box, then it's using things like better credentials or more secure passwords on those boxes. Disabling things like Windows Remote PowerShell as well. So only having that if you really need it, and not being able to use that across potentially Windows 10 devices within the organization. That would then stop that movement across other devices. And with that hopefully just gives you a good overview of the scenario. And as I said, there's the lab guides there which you can walk through. They've got the advanced hunting queries in there as well to help you dig a little bit deeper into these events and these alerts. Thank you.